you've started many things before. Maybe it was starting out in the gym, maybe it was a channel or an instrument, or maybe it was a language app. And day one went great. But we all know that the first day always goes well. Because you had a plan, you had the energy, and you'd already pictured what it looks like when it works in the end. And then, somewhere around week 3 or 4, it just stopped. Not dramatically, you didn't decide to quit, it just quietly became something you used to do and are not currently doing anymore. And that brings us to the topic of today's video, which is discipline. Specifically, how you actually build it instead of waiting to magically become the kind of person who has it. And I want to be upfront that it's not going to be the version you've seen 100 times on social media with your alarm set to 4 AM and the cold plunges. I think that version is wrong, and I think it's part of why so many people try to become disciplined and fail. Because here's the question I actually want you sitting with for the next 10 minutes. If you already know what you should be doing and you already want the results and you've already started before, why does it fall apart in the exact same spot every single time? So I think there's a specific answer to that, and I think once you see it, it's kind of hard to unsee. Alright, first I want to clear up because I think this is something many people get wrong from the start. Most of the content you see about discipline online sells it as intensity. Get up at 4 AM, get harder, suffer more. And I get why that sells. It looks impressive, it makes a good edit on Instagram Reels. But I genuinely don't think that that's what discipline actually is. And I think selling it that way is why so many people burn out in week 3 and decide that they're just not a disciplined person. So here's my take. Discipline isn't doing something hardcore with maximum energy. Discipline is doing something boring, repeatedly, when literally nothing about the moment is rewarding you for it. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I think the reason people struggle so much with it isn't that they're lazy, it's that they've been trained to expect the feeling first. Motivation first, then action. Feel like it, then do it. And that ordering works fine on day 1, when the motivation is naturally there. But it completely falls apart on day 30, when that feeling is gone and you don't have that 4 AM motivation anymore. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings aren't reliable. They come and go based on your mood, your sleep, whether something annoying happened that day. And if your entire system depends on feeling, you've built the whole thing on the least reliable input you have access to. And here's what I think actually fixes this problem. And this is the part that took me way too long to figure out. It's not that disciplined people feel motivated more than you do. I'm fairly sure they don't. They've just stopped treating the feeling as a requirement to do the things they have to. So let's talk about where it actually falls apart, because I don't think it's where people expect it to. I'll use my own thing as an example because it's the clearest one I've got. Running a channel on YouTube is basically a machine designed to test this exact skill. You make something, you spend hours on it, writing, filming, editing, creating a thumbnail, the whole thing. And then you post it, and it gets basically no attention at all. And here's the part that actually messes with you the most. It's not the failure that's hard. Failure's fine, failure's obvious. You know what to do with failure. That's why the hard part is that you get basically no feedback on YouTube. No signal telling you whether you're getting better or just wasting your time. You do the work and the universe doesn't respond either way. And that's the real test. And I think it's the same test in basically everything you're doing. The gym doesn't tell you anything for the first 2 months. Learning an instrument sounds bad for way longer than you want it to. A skill you're building doesn't announce when it's improving. You just keep going blind for a long stretch where the only evidence you have is that you showed up again and again and again, no matter how you're feeling at that time. And this is exactly where people quit. Not at the hard part, but at the boring part. The part where nothing dramatic is happening and no one's watching and there's no story to tell about it. Quitting almost never feels like giving up in the moment, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. It feels reasonable. You'll come back to it when I have more time, maybe this isn't for me, I restart on Monday. And I think these excuses are the actual enemy, and I think it's way quieter than people expect. It's not some dramatic moment of weakness. It's a completely reasonable sounding thought, showing up on an average Tuesday when nothing's going well. Okay, so if that's the problem, the obvious answer is just to want it more and to be stronger, mentally of course. I don't think that's how it works, and I want to explain why using something I've brought up before on this channel, because it applies here just as much. So, in the Odyssey, Odysseus knows his ship has to sail past the Sirens, and that anyone who hears their song steers into the rocks and dies. And what he does is really smart. He doesn't trust his own willpower in the moment. He has his crew tie him to the mast and plug their own ears with a direct order not to release him no matter how much he begs for it. He didn't try to be strong. He assumed he wouldn't be strong enough and built something that didn't depend on his own willpower. And I think that's the single most useful idea in this entire video. Because willpower is basically the exact same category of things as motivation. It's a resource that fluctuates, and it's lowest exactly when you need it most. For example, at the end of a long day, when you're tired, you're discouraged and the thing you're building isn't working. Those are the moments that decide everything, and those are the moments when your willpower is at its absolute weakest. So the move isn't to get more willpower. The move is to build a system that keeps working even when your willpower is at zero. Same as Odysseus. You don't win by being stronger than the song. You win by making sure the decision isn't up to the version of you who has had to hear it. So with all this information, I made 5 things you can actually do yourself to improve. Number 1. Shrink it until it's stupid. The most common mistake I see, and I've done this myself constantly, is setting the bar when you're the most motivated. I'll edit for 4 hours every day. Great. That works exactly as long as your motivation holds on, which is, let's say, a week. Set the bar at your worst day instead. What can you still do when you're exhausted, discouraged, and everything going badly? 10 minutes, 1 set, 1 paragraph, that's the real bar. Because that's the bar you'll actually clear on the day that it matters. Number 2. Remove the decision entirely. Every time you have to decide whether to do the thing, you're rolling the dice on how you happen to feel that day. So don't decide. Same time, same place, same trigger every day. The goal is for it to become as thoughtless as brushing your teeth. You're not motivated to brush your teeth, you just do it because it never became a decision in the first place. Number 3. Track the showing up and not the results. This one's specific to the silent problem I mentioned. If your only measure of progress is results, like views, the amount of weight you lifted, whatever, you will get demoralized during exactly the stretch where results haven't arrived yet. So measure the input instead. Did I show up today? Yes or no? That's a thing fully under your own control, and it gives you feedback during the long stretch when nothing external is giving you any feedback. Number 4. Separate the identity from the outcome. This is one I think matters most long term. If you're someone trying to grow a channel, for example, every bad video is evidence that you are failing. But if you're someone who makes videos, a bad video is just one of the many you've made that happens to be not as good as the other ones. Same action, completely different relationship to it. And the second version survives the boring stretch because it's not constantly asking to be validated by results. And finally, number 5. Expect it to feel bad and don't read it as a failure. The first stretch of anything is uncomfortable. That discomfort isn't a sign you picked the wrong thing or that you're not built for it. It's just what the early part feels like. Before you've got any competence or momentum to make it enjoyable, you just have to suffer through the first part. And this is the distinction I think matters most out of everything in this video. You have to learn to tell the difference between I can't do it and I'm just struggling a bit. Because those two almost feel identical in the moment. They both feel like a wall, but one of them is actually information and the other one's just what effort feels like from the inside. Most people quit here because they interpret this feels bad as this isn't working. I think that this part is just the beginning and it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. And if you catch yourself saying, oh, I can't do this, and honestly ask yourself whether you actually can't or whether you're just currently uncomfortable, you'll find it's almost always the second one. And here's what I find exciting about everything I said so far, because I don't think discipline is a bunch of separate skills. So I don't think that there is like a gym discipline and a work discipline as different things you have to build one at a time from scratch. I think it's one skill. And this is it, the ability to keep doing something when nothing about the moment itself is rewarding you for your efforts. And once you've built it in one place, you recognize the shape of it everywhere else. The feeling of, I don't want to do this today, is the same feeling in the gym as it is in the editing desk or everywhere else you're trying to do something productive. You've already met that feeling. You already know it's survivable because you've survived it somewhere else before. And that's why I recommend to just start anything. Whatever it is, a channel, a specific lift you want to improve in the gym, an instrument, a language. The actual thing you're building underneath is the ability to keep going without applause. And that transfers to literally everything else you'll ever try to do in your entire life. And that's honestly the part that doesn't get shown on social media because it just doesn't make good content. There's no dramatic footage of someone editing a video that's going to flop, or recording a workout that you won't ever show to anybody else, or practicing something badly for the 100th time. That stuff's invisible, but that's where it actually gets built, in the completely unremarkable stretch where nobody's watching and nothing's paying off yet. So here's my conclusion. I don't think discipline is a personality trait some people got handed and others didn't. I think it's a skill, and I think most people never build it before because they're waiting for a feeling that isn't reliably coming, and then concluding they're just not that kind of person when it doesn't show up. The actual work isn't getting more motivated, it's building something that runs without motivation. A bar low enough, you'll clear it on your worst day. A routine that removes the decision, a way of measuring progress that doesn't collapse during the stretch where there's nothing external to show for it. Everyone's good on day one. That's not where it's decided. It's decided on the boring, average, and discouraging days in the middle, when there's no reason to keep going except that you said you would. So pick one thing, set the bar embarrassingly low, low enough that you'd still feel silly skipping it. And then just don't break the chain, especially on the days when it clearly isn't working yet. Because that's the entire skill. Not doing something hard once, doing something boring on repeat long enough after the part where it felt exciting.